Welcome everybody! Today we have another champion deck tech, and Kaden was our winner again.
Yeah, Baylen was super fun to play in this previous game, and this deck can really be super competitive. I tried to not go as competitive with it,
He's pretty competitive.
but you can still see there's a lot of combos with Baylen. He can still get out of control really quick, and I'm super excited to get to show you guys all of the cards and the main themes that I went for in this deck.
Tell us about Baylen the Haymaker, the commander.
Yeah, so Baylen's abilities are very much based around tokens. So I'll go ahead and just read it really quick. So Baylen has tap 2 untapped tokens you control to add 1 mana of any color, tap 3 untapped tokens you control to draw a card, or tap 4 untapped tokens you control, put 3+++ encounters on Baylen the Haymaker, it gains trample until end of turn. So really this deck is token tribal.
Yeah.
And there are a few different ways to go about this. I added a mixture of both creature tokens as well as artifact tokens like food, clue, and treasure tokens as well. So there is kind of a mixture in there to help make sure you're creating enough tokens to tap all of his different abilities multiple times per turn.
The first theme that we're going to dive into is token generator. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so with Baylen, this deck can be very competitive, and there's even a few ways to have infinite token generation in Baylen's colors. I didn't want to do that with this deck. Our play group, it's just not the way I would want to win a game by just having infinite tokens. But that being said, there are still a ton of token generations. Basically, every creature in this deck is based around either creating tokens or having a way to untap those tokens on subsequent turns. And a few of the cards that I really just want to highlight, some of my favorites, are going to be the Illustrious Wanderglyph, the Wolverine Riders, and the Tendershoot Druid. Now, all of these basically, it might actually be Tendershoot Dryad now that I'm looking at it. All of these cards basically do the same thing. They make it so that you are able to create tokens on each person's upkeep. I was able to get out the Illustrious Wanderglyph towards the end of the game there, and because of a few of the other cards I had on the board, I was creating 4 tokens on each person's upkeep. And I'm sure you can see how that could get out of hand really quick with Baylen.
Well, and another thing too is you had so many forms of token generation, whether it's through upkeep or a creature dealt damage. Like there's so many routes that you went with it that it honestly, even after I had board wiped, you pretty much had a bunch of tokens next turn.
Yeah, I still had like 12 food tokens just chilling on the board. And that's kind of why I did a mixture of tokens, was to try and help include the utility from artifact tokens like food and treasure, but also have the combat threats of the creature tokens.
Okay, so the next thing that we're going to get into are Untappers. So tell us about those.
Yeah, so the reason I put Untappers in this deck is because you're going to be tapping your tokens every time you activate one of Baylen's abilities. And having the ability to just untap those tokens again, either on another opponent's untap step, or even by using some other abilities, you're able to just keep Baylen's triggers rolling. And a few of the cards I want to highlight to show that off are going to be Curse of Bounty, Seedborn Muse, and Halo Fountain. So Curse of Bounty does have a little bit of a requirement, which is whoever you put Curse of Bounty on, they have to get attacked. But that's not that difficult to have happen with 4 players. A lot of people might not attack whoever has Curse of Bounty on them just because they don't want you untapping all of your stuff, but that means you can put it on yourself. And they'll act as a good defense because they realize, oh crap, if I attack, then they're untapping all of their tokens and just feeding Baylen's ability. Seedborn Muse is a little bit more of just an easy setup. With Seedborn Muse, you just untap all of your untap all of your permanents during each other player's untap step.
I mean, that's really useful.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like when you have as many, again, in the gameplay, and if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's pretty fun. But you were pretty much having so many tokens out, and you were just getting so much value from the tokens to be able to do that on each other player's untap step. I mean, like, you're pretty much like tripling the value.
Yeah. One card we did get to see. We didn't see either of those get into the game, but we did see Drum Bellower, which is pretty similar to Seedborn Muse, except for it's specifically creatures. Seedborn Muse and the Curse of Bounty are a little bit more useful, just because they untap all of your permanents. Yeah. So you're untapping all of your food tokens, all of your clue tokens, and all of your treasure tokens as well.
Well, even all your lands.
And your lands, yeah.
So, you know, like, it's a great protective way, too.
Yeah. And then Halo Fountain, the last one I just kind of want to talk about here. Again, it requires a little bit more setup than something like Seedborn Muse. But this one has a built-in win con. So I'm going to read Halo Fountain, I'm sure it's up on the screen right here. But really quick, it has pay a white mana, and you tap it to untap to tap creature you control, create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token, or you can pay 2 mana and tap it to untap 2 tapped creatures you control to draw a card, or you can pay 5 white mana and tap it to untap 15 tapped creatures you control, and you win the game. So with Halo Fountain, it's not this infinite untapping thing, because you do have to tap Halo Fountain every time you use it, but you are able to untap multiple creatures that you may have tapped down to activate Baylen's abilities.
Well, and a lot of times too, like, okay, the final ability. I mean, the fact that you can pay 5 white mana and untap 15 tapped creatures you control, that's pretty much like, you know, with Baylen, you can tap at instant speed, so, you know, you can, and again, you can get 15 tapped creatures really quickly in this deck. I mean, what, you won the game with how many flyers? 400?
400 and something, flying creature tokens. Spirit creature tokens. So
it's you know, even though they're like, oh, 15 sounds like a lot, it really isn't in this type of deck. Okay, the next thing that we really wanted to dive into are token doublers. So tell us about that.
Yeah, if you watch the gameplay, hopefully this isn't, you know, spoilers too much, but my board state went ballistic because I was able to get a few of these doublers out. Namely, I was able to get out both Doubling Season and Primal Vigor. 2 cards that are twin brothers that basically do the exact same thing, with, you know, Doubling Season being a little bit more specific to me. Yeah.
Primal Vigor actually helped me out quite a bit.
Yeah.
Which, again, but at the end of the day, though, you got more value out of it than I did.
Yeah, and I honestly had so much fun because this is the first time I've ever gotten out both Doubling Season and Primal Vigor. So to have both of them just popping off was a lot of fun. Another one that I have in this deck that would have been insane if I'd been able to play it out is Ogier Talk, Deepest Foundation. This card...
Token tripler.
Yeah,
so
if you don't know it, it triples the number of... I think it's only creature tokens, But, again, with the number of creature tokens this deck can create, you know, this can really put you ahead in the game state so quickly.
Oh, and another thing that I love about... if I remember correctly, these came from, like, the Lost Caverns of Ixalan set, but the Ogier cards in particular... they're actually kind of a pain in the butt to kill. Because they can, when they die, they turn, I believe, into a land.
Yeah, this one turns into a land,
Yes, a land, and then you can just, like, transform it again, and then you got Ogier back onto the battlefield, your tripler. So
and even
it becomes a real issue. But really useful in a deck like this.
And Ogier's transform from the Temple of Civilization is so simple to pull off again in a token deck, because all you have to do is attack with 3 or more creatures. If you have 15 human soldiers or something, that is so easy to do.
Just re-transform again.
Yeah. And the final one I'm going to talk about is going to be Battle of Betrogard. Now this one isn't technically a token doubler per se. The reason we're including it in this category is because of its 3rd chapter, which lets you choose any number of artifact tokens and or creature tokens you control with different names. For each of them, create a token as a copy of it.
The next theme we wanted to dive into are copiers. So, tell us about that.
Yeah, and this is again a little bit more my play style. These cards might not be, right for your Baylen play style, but I have a few cards in here that specifically let me create copies of certain creatures either when they enter the battlefield or as an activated ability. And again, I have these cards in here to really get more either Tendershoot Dryads out there, or there's a few other ones. There's like the Michaeloth, that if you can get multiple of those out onto the battlefield, you are just going to run away with any game. So while this may not be, the most effective or the most efficient use of these cards, I just think they are a lot of fun. So the three I'm going to highlight real quick are just Soul Foundry. So the way Soul Foundry works is you cast this artifact, and when you cast it, you may remove a creature card in your hand from the game, and then you pay X and tap it to put a creature token into play that's a copy of the imprinted creature card. And then X is the converted mana cost of that card. Again, with this card, if you're able to put like a Tendershoot Dryad or a Michaeloth underneath this guy, and then you're just tapping that on each of your turns, having 3 or 4 Tendershoot Dryads alone, that can be insane. And the other two are pretty similar. They're Springheart Nantuko and Bramble Sovereign. So with these ones, they have the cost that you have to pay a colorless and a green mana to basically create a token copy of a creature when it enters the battlefield. And again, these ones are in here more just to create copies of some of my bigger, more fun set piece creatures.
The last section that we wanted to highlight is protection. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so in white-green, protection is going to be pretty common. I have your basic just Holy Day and Fog, 2 protection spells to prevent combat damage. Akroma's Will is great both defensively and offensively. If you have Baylen out on the battlefield as you cast Akroma's Will, you just win the game right there, tokens or no.
Now let's get into the last section, mana and ramp.
Yeah, we had to, of course, discuss the lands and artifacts in here. I didn't personally include any ramp per se in this deck, aside from your standard mana artifacts, sack lands, things like that. So while there isn't a whole lot of ramp in this deck, Baylen's first ability actually kind of helps you get around that, being able to tap your own tokens for mana. I didn't really feel the need to include a lot of ramp in this deck.
Well, and Baylen himself is really cheap mana cost wise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's 3 mana.
Yeah.
Red, green, white. And
you can kind of see that through the utility lands and utility artifacts in this deck. I included all of your, multicolored lands in here to try and make it easier to make sure that you're getting out Baylen by turn 3 at the latest turn 4.
Well, that is it for our Champion Deck Tech video.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining in for another Caden Champion Deck Tech. And let us know what you thought about this kind of format of video. Hopefully you're able to follow all of the different themes and see all the different cards that I have in this deck. It might be a little bit more confusing just because we didn't divide it by the card types. But
honestly, we wanted to just try something a little bit different instead of, going into really just more of the strategy than like, oh, this is... Because a lot of them had a little bit of like double dipping in multiple like themed pools.
Yeah.
So
we think if we had done it by card type, we would have been repeating
redundant.
A lot of the same stuff through each of the different card types. And honestly, let us know in the comments. Baylen is such a fun commander, and he has so much utility. Let us know in the comments if you have a Baylen deck, or if you have some cards that you would recommend to put into a Baylen deck. Again, this deck can be about as competitive or as non-competitive as you want it to be.
Well, that's it for this video. If you liked it, like, comment, and subscribe to join the fairest community in all of Magic the Gathering. We really appreciate you all, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, I'll see you in the next Champion Deck Tech.